This was a 93-mile ride with almost 6,700 feet of climbing that we did this past weekend. I'm going to focus on two of the main climbs that we did, each taking almost 30 minutes. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis of Cycling Greek, and today we're going to talk about how I train for climbing. This is the start of Walker's Grade, the first of the two climbs that I'll be featuring. It is 3.6 miles and on Strava it's considered a Category 2 climb at 6.3% average. Other than a bit of a false flat in the middle and a wall at the end, it's pretty consistent. Now we had about 8 riders on this ride, all strong. 3 of them, including me, were old guys. 3 of them were Cat 2s. And it was the Cat 2s I was looking forward to test myself with on the climbs. Now in this video with a racing age of 71, when you see me climbing with the Cat 2s, it's not because I'm climbing like a Cat 2. That's not the case. These guys can leave me any time that they want. A couple of the Cat 2s are following their own program, and you have a third Cat 2 that's coming back from injury. So while my intensity is at the border between tempo and threshold, theirs is between tempo and endurance. Okay, so now with that out of the way, how I do what I do. So when you're talking about climbing, you're talking about long sustained effort. Long sustained power. To be able to do this on the climbs, I actually start on the flats. Actually flat and flattish. And that's mostly due to the time of the year. This is the off season, it's cold, not as much sunlight, and so the opportunity to go high to do a lot of climbing is not there. And I really don't need the climbs at that point. I need endurance, and that's what I work on. And when I'm talking endurance, I'm talking constant pressure on the pedals endurance. At this time of year, I'm on the bike 4 days a week, and 3 of those days are endurance. Since early November, I've ranged from 11 to 15 hours, 170 to 250 miles per week. Let's take a moment and go to the action on the screen. What you just witnessed is me going to the front. I was sort of comfortable enough on the back, but the pace was not as even as I wanted it to be, and I wanted to go to a bigger gear. And I'll talk about why I did that a little later on in the video. Okay, back to my 3 out of 4 days of endurance. Now, one of those days is with the long group ride, which is like this. Now, as it's getting closer to the season, actually my first preseason race is going to be next week, and I'll be talking about that in a bit too. But the group rides in November and December, I am very fortunate that everyone else I ride with is of the same mindset as I am, that they are doing endurance, rather than a testosterone-filled race-pace type of endeavor. My other 2 endurance days, I'm doing up to 4 hours solo of endurance. Again, constant pressure on the pedals. And there's maybe 1 quick stop at the turnaround and a 2-mile slowdown section through a park. On my 4th day of riding each week, that's where I do my intervals. And I do 2 types of intervals. The first one is sweet spot. And I didn't start off by doing sweet spot at the early November. I was doing upper endurance, worked up to tempo, and now I've been doing sweet spot. I started off by doing 10 to 15 minute intervals of sweet spot, and now I'm starting to get over 30 minutes at a shot. And if you notice this far, I've built that base, and I started work on that sustained power. So now as I started working on that, I now start climbing. And we'll talk about the climbing on the next climb. I just jumped ahead to near the end of the climb. Now I've been leading all this way only because I've been going just fast enough where they didn't want to pass me. Now I'm on the wall, and I don't do well with walls right now. I'm looking forward to when I'm finally able to get rid of that last 5 pounds, but right now it's still with me. They shuffle past me. I slow down, figuring that we're only about 1/3 of the way through this 19-mile ride. No need for me to kill myself. This is Powerhouse South. This one's a little longer at 3.8 miles. At this point, we're about 63 miles into the ride, and we've already climbed about 5,300 feet. It is a little shallower, averaging 5.7%. When I do start climbing, I climb in an easy gear, endurance pace. I do a lot of endurance when I start off climbing because climbing endurance is not the same as flatland endurance. You're not using the same muscles. Your lungs have certainly benefited from flatland endurance, as have your muscles that you use riding on those flats. Now, some of those muscles you still use with climbing, but you have to bring your climbing muscles up to speed. I have pretty much mostly done that. So now I'm working on using a slightly bigger gear. The concept is that if I'm going a particular speed at a particular RPM, if I shift up one gear,
Yes, we do.
and use that same RPM, I'll be going faster. Now that's easier said than done. When I do shift up that one gear, I'm not going to go at that same RPM because I can't. But I'm working my way up so where I can be able to do that. And sometimes I'm able to hit it. And even if I'm not able to eventually hit it, I am getting stronger where I can still go even one gear bigger to get a little more speed. Although it may be short-lived, and I expect that. It's kind of like riding that fine line between aerobic and anaerobic death. You spin it at a high cadence until you start to redline, then you shift up to harder gear, then you power with that until the metabolites in your muscles bog you down, so where you have to shift again to an easier gear. So you use that as long as you can, you shift back and forth, and hopefully make it to the top with the rest of the gang. On the screen, I just did what I did on that first climb. I was just comfortable enough, so then I went to the front and went to a bigger gear. So now I'm just trying to maintain that. Right now we're on the top section of Powerhouse South. Now again, the whole thing averaged about 5.7%. But the bottom part's going to be, I think, closer to 6.5%. So right now I think we're at about the 4.5%. That allows me on those sections where it gets shallower that I can downshift and start focusing on muscle to increase the power. Now when it gets a little steeper or I start to get a little tired with those metabolites again building up, that waste material in the muscles, then I'll shift to an easier gear. I'll do that for a bit, and then I'll get back to the bigger gear when I can. Unfortunately, I don't have stats on this, but I can tell you that Antonio behind me is spinning at a higher cadence than I am. I'm pretty confident he can just drop it down and just blast ahead of me, but that's not what his training calls for right now. Tom in back of him is spinning at a slower cadence, probably closer to what I'm doing. Now, this ride is taking place on Saturday. The following Saturday is going to be my first race of the season. I consider it a pre-season race. It's going to be the Santa Barbara Road Race in California. Each lap is going to have a key climb in it, and at the top of the key climb is going to have more undulating rollers. What's going to make it really tough for me is that this is going to be a 55/60 category. And typically, I don't race anymore with the 55s, particularly if it's going to be a climbing race. This, however, will be the only opportunity I have to see how I fare against actual competition before my race season starts. Again, at a racing age of 71, I know I'm going to get trounced. I am curious to see if it's going to be a full-on trouncing, or if I'm just going to get trounced a little bit. On the screen action, I'm able to do what I'm doing right now because of the training that I've done and being consistent with it. It's all about sustained power right now. Some people call it durability. Let's fast forward to get to that last section to the top. Earlier I mentioned that these guys can just turn it on and leave me at any time. And that's what Tom is doing now. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. As always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.